Tonight I would like to talk to you about the last days and faithfulness in the last days. We are, if you hadn't noticed, we are in the last days. It's kind of scary, but at the same time, if God's in control, he'll take care of us. In verse 8 of chapter 18, it says, I tell you that he will avenge them speedily. Nevertheless, when the Son of Man cometh, shall he find faith on the earth? Is there going to be anybody with faith in the end times, just before Jesus Christ comes? Or is it just going to continue to go down, down, down? I hope that by God's grace, if I'm still here, I hope that I have faith that God is in control and he's taking care of me, he's guiding me. I hope that he shows me what I should be doing and that I will lead my family in that way. I've got a couple, three things here I would like to look at, and maybe it will help us to be faithful in the last days. Be faithful when the Lord comes. Let's look at 2 Timothy 3:1. 2 Timothy 3 and verse 1. It says, this know also, that in the last days perilous times shall come. Do you know what perilous means? Well, that means dangerous. It means hazardous, full of risk. Did you know that this is a time of peril? Now, that's not meaning that there's going to be guys driving 100 miles an hour all the time, although I saw some that were on the way down and the way back. Not in the mountains, though. On the way back, it was snowing. But that's not what it's talking about, especially if they're drunk, 100 miles, not good. But that would be perilous for them and for others, but not in the way that it speaks of here. How about taking fentanyl or overdosing crack cocaine? Now, these are not safe. These are hazardous and dangerous for our bodies. But I believe that in 2 Timothy 3:1 is talking about spiritual peril. I believe it's talking about things that will bring us down spiritually and obviously it could affect the physical. But what is more important? Our physical lives or our spiritual lives? I think about a missionary. He went to the Indians and he was there less than a year, I think, and he had a disease or got a disease and he was gone within a year. Now that's peril to his life, but think about what God would give him at the resurrection, at the judgment seat. It's just amazing. I want us to go through here and look at these things and see how they can help us, or how they can not necessarily help us, but help us be prepared against them and to avoid them and to spot them. And so let's go through these things. In verse 2, it says, for men shall be lovers of their own selves. Boy, isn't it today one of those days? Everybody thinks all about themselves. I think Paul said, every man look upon the things of others rather than the things of his own. Something like that. I didn't quote it quite just right. But everybody's thinking about themselves. Man, you say, the Lord helps them who help themselves. Chapter and verse, come on. That's not even in there. It's all about me. And Jesus said, no. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. That's what he says we ought to do. And if all we're doing is thinking about ourselves and trying to get, move ourselves ahead of somebody and move ourselves ahead in our what people think of us, is that what's important in life? This is the last days. People think only about themselves. Let's look at the next one. It says covetous. Covetous. Boy, we don't covet, do we? Let's just think back about Exodus 20, verse 17. It says, "Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house." You know what people like? They like, hey, I got the nicest house on the block. My yard is manicured and it's beautiful. Everybody adores my house and my yard. Because look at me. See, it's all about me these last days. He says back there in Exodus, "Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife." That could get you some physical trouble if you pick the wrong man's wife. Anyway, it says, "Nor his manservant, nor his maidservant." The things that we do, the things that help us get our life accomplished, that help us get through our life. Those maidservants, manservants, they do. Now we have like computers and we have, robot vacuums. Maybe that's what we got to get for you. Just kidding. It's just amazing. It's ox or ass. A lot of people, they want the nicest car. They want people to look at him and say, "Man, I wish I had his car. I wish I had his pickup. I wish I had his this or that." That's what life is all about in these last days. It says boasters. You ever boast about something? We all have. I'm not asking you to say, yeah, like you're the only one. No, we all have, but what does that look back on? Us again. It looks back on us. I did this. I can do this. I can do this better than anybody else. I. Proud. Pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. You see, everybody thinks it's about me. And when it gets down to it, what's going to happen? It's not going to be nice. Those falls and those destructions, oh boy, they are very hard on us physically. Not to say anything about the spiritual things. You think God's going to approve of you when you stand before the Lord and he says, "Boy, you did a good job. You were telling everybody how good you were." You think he's going to say, "Well done, thou faithful servant"? No, I don't think so. I think he's going to take us to the woodshed probably. It says the next thing is blasphemers. I don't know if we go over all these, but we're going to go through a few of them. I was just reading Leviticus this morning in chapter 24, verse 16. It says, "He that blasphemeth the name of the Lord, he shall surely be put to death, and all the congregation shall certainly stone him, as well the stranger as he that is born in the land, when he blasphemeth the name of the Lord shall be put to death." Pretty rough in the Old Testament, wasn't it? We're pretty easy on people today. I mean, there's a lot of things. One guy was picking up sticks on Sunday, not Saturday, excuse me, and he was stoned. God didn't put up with anything back then. This is the age of grace. God's so good. He doesn't care if you do all these things. Oh, I think he does. They say that the harvest doesn't always come in October. Sometimes it'll be later. When we get to heaven, stand before him, that could be the time when he takes it out on us. We are his people. We are his church. And they had all the benefits physically in the Old Testament. The Jews had it all. But today we have all the spiritual blessings, and it's a little different for us. We just have to understand that and make sure we don't blaspheme and all that. How about disobedient to parents? That would be a wonderful thing for people to be. I think, disobedient to parents, don't you think? Don't you think so, kids? No? I thought about this, when I was reading through this, I thought about a man, Oliver B. Green. He's on a radio station, and he's not. His voice is. And he said, there is one commandment in the Old Testament with a promise with it. Promise isn't a very good promise, but he said, the Lord said that honor thy father and mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. That's the promise, that you'll live long. And Mr. Green said, I probably won't live very long. I didn't treat my dad right. I treated him terrible. I probably won't live very long. And he died in his early 60s, I believe. So God takes care of that. He says, these are the last days, and this is the way people are going to be. I think about my mom and dad. My dad's been gone for since 1995, over 30 years. My mom died in 2016, and I miss him. I still miss him. I was thinking about my dad the other day. If I wanted to ask him a question, if I wanted to know something, I'd ask my dad. He knew everything. He didn't, but he knew a lot. And I would ask him about this. What about, do you know this guy? Yeah. He knew a lot of people, and I still miss him. I didn't treat him very well when I was a teenager. I was kind of rebellious. But boy, after the Lord straightened me up when I was about 20, 21, then I started helping my dad. And me and my dad went into business, and we were in business for a while. And I helped him. If he needed his car fixed, I fixed his car. If he needed something fixed in the house, I fixed his house. And I'm thankful for that. I did make it to 71, praise God for that. But I don't know. It's going to be bad for some folks, I'm afraid. And all that, even if you don't, it affects you. Especially if you let it get under your skin, or it could just give you the same attitude. All these things are bad, and they could give you the bad attitude that these other people have. Let's look at the next one. Truce breakers. You ever break a promise? You ever tell somebody, I'll be there, I'll do that? Our word is our bond. But it could mean an agreement between a couple people. It could mean like an engagement. I looked it up, and it means a lot of things. It's just breaking your agreements. Once you say, I will do that, and you say, no, I won't. The last days. It says false accusers. This is what the devil likes to use. He likes people to look at you as a Christian, and you did this. And you might not have done that, but the devil will use it to spoil your reputation. And what we need to do is live above all those things that they could pick at. They might see about 1975, no, it was 85, 84, 85. We had a Awana club in my former church, and we would pick kids up, and we had this one woman, she came once in a while, her kids came, but she came to church once in a while. And I had been working at Taos Industries, and I would work a little overtime cleaning out some things and that nobody else wanted to do. And well, I had 4 kids, and I said, well, I'll take the overtime. Might be dirty, that's okay. I'll just blow off all the dust that I get on me, and I'll be all right. So on Saturday, they give me an hour to do this, and when I got done, there were some bottles and cans sitting there. I just grabbed them, put them in a plastic bag, and took them to the store. Well, there was a couple beer cans in there. I should have left them. But that woman, she came along, and she looked at me like, now that wasn't a false accusation. But man, you gotta watch out. You have to be very careful, because people will take a little bit of truth and blow it out of proportion for us who are Christians. And they'll do that to most people, but especially Christians, because the devil would like nothing better than to tarnish the Lord's children. That's who he hates. He hates us, and he hates God. Let's look at the next one, incontinent. Now, this is not, older folks that have problems, it's not about that. It's about restraining their desires. The other part is not restraining their desires. It's nothing. Anyway, I'm going to get in trouble here. We all have desires. We all have things we would like to do. But you know what? The devil, he would love to taunt us and tempt us and get us to the point where we see something, oh, I would like to do that. I would like to have that. I would like to be that. And we just can't bring our desires under control. We just let them go. And that is certainly part of the last days. It says, fierce despisers of those that are good. Every one of us in here, if you're saved today, you ought to have a reputation of being good. Every one of us should. If we're Christians, that ought to be the brand. But are we that good? I hope so. Regardless of how good you are, the devil has his guys out there. Even your friends. When I worked at Taos Industries, they would laugh at me. I think he was saved, and I had a book that I was reading. I was reading Fox's Book of Martyrs, and I would go out by myself, and during my lunch break, I would read that book. I'd read through that book. He hated it. He was saved. I don't know if he was saved or not, but he did not like it. The fact that I was, more righteous. I wasn't trying to be. I was just trying to serve my Lord. I was trying to learn more about what the Lord was all about. And he hated that. And so you know what he did? I had a chair. They had a couple chairs out in the warehouse, and I'd sit in that chair. I'd read it. I'd leave my book on that chair. I wouldn't take it with me. I'd just leave it there because I'd come back the next break time. He took that. He threw it down on the ground, ran over with a forklift. Broke the binding all up and all that. Looked terrible. Hard to keep open at the right page. And he was a Christian. I don't believe in karma, but the Lord takes care of some of those guys. And he was young. He was probably 40, 45, I don't know, maybe 35. Back then he had kids that were 10, 11 years old. He got sick and he died. I was shocked. But the Lord takes care of that. But remember, you're going to have people out there despising you, even though you are good. Even if you do the right things. Traitors, need to go on. Traitors, heady, high-minded. Heady could be drunk, could be a lot of things. But let's go to the last one, verse 5. It says, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. You know what these guys are that have a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof? They want everybody to look at them and say, hey, what a great Christian. But you know what? Deep down inside, they ain't doing nothing. They're just making themselves look good, so everybody will think well of them. But the problem is they're empty inside. They're denying the power. Think about it. Jesus Christ, if, we'll just say this man was saved, but if he is saved, he ought to have the power of God in him. He would have the Spirit of God in him. He would have the Spirit of God in him, leading him and directing him and helping him be what God wants him to be. But he's just making a show. Look at me. And he doesn't have any power, because it's all fake. Would you go with me to 1 Samuel chapter 16? 1 Samuel chapter 16. Haven't been turning much. I'm sorry. I probably should have had you turn to every one of those verses. But we're talking about David here, and he is at a point where he's going to be anointed, but his brothers came first. And in verse 7, his first brother came here, and Eliab, he was tall, dark, and handsome. He was strong, and Samuel said, surely the Lord's anointed is before me. And then in verse 7 it says, but the Lord said unto Samuel, look not on his countenance or on the height of his stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord seeth not as man seeth, for man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart. You see, it's not what I make you see when you look at me. That's nothing. That means nothing. God says, it means something to me if I see you on the inside as righteous. When I see you living right, when I see you, that means something to me. But for you to look good for all them and nothing in you, doesn't mean a thing. Doesn't mean a thing. It's all about what God sees. It's all about what's real. And this guy's just a fake. He is making people believe that he's something he is not. I think they call them actors. They're a great bunch. Well, these things are not conducive for Christians. If you have seen yourself in any of these, take a hint that God wants you to change your ways. And if you have friends that are this way, stay away. Say, I'm sorry, I can't go along with you. I can't be with you. You're a bad influence. If they told you that, they'd be mad, but I'd rather have them be mad than God be mad. Well, so the first thing I want you to see there is you need to face the facts. The facts are that these are the last times, and it's troublous times. It is dangerous. It is full of risk, full of hazards. That's what life is for the Christian in the last days. That's a spiritual sense, not necessarily in the physical. But let's look in Philippians chapter 3. Philippians chapter 3. And verse number 14. It says, I press toward the mark for the prize of the high calling of God in Christ Jesus. You see what God's saying here? We have a mark. Anybody in here ever run track? Besides me and Bruce, preacher? Anybody else? Well, anyway, if you're sprinting, I was not a sprinter, but I ran mostly just a half mile. But when you're a sprinter, like you have a 100-yard dash, that's a straight dash right down the track. And you're down there, I can't get down there, but you get down there on your mark and get set, go. When they blow that, or then they shoot that gun, your eyes come up and you look at the finish line. That's what your goal is. That's what you're aiming at. And for me, in the half mile, I'd take, on the second trip around, I'd come around the last curve, and I'd get to the straightaway, and I'd look down there, and there's that ribbon, that tape, and that's my goal. That's my goal. And, you're running down there. Oh, there's my girlfriend up there in the stands. Oh, there's my mom and dad. Hi. What do you think that's going to do? You keep looking over your shoulder at this guy coming up on you. What's going to happen? You're going to be messed up. You're going to be distracted. The goal is lost. You've put that out of your mind because you are thinking about other things. Well, our goal is our Lord Jesus Christ. He's standing at the finish line. He's waiting for us to get there. And that's what we need to keep our eye on. Our eye ought to be on Him and not the things around us. Oh, do we have to take care of the things around us? Yes. I'm talking about in the spiritual sense. We have physical things to do. And we have spiritual things to do, or physical things to do in the spiritual realm. Tonight we're going to clean the church. That ought to be a desire of our hearts to do that physically to serve the Lord. But I'm talking about the goal that you have is all about Him. I wanted to run in the 440 relay team, or a mile relay team. We had to run a quarter mile, and they were filling up the team. There was two guys that they wanted to check out, me and a freshman. I was a senior. And I was used to running the half mile. So I said, well, I gotta hurry up. I can't just kind of lay back and then kick at the end. I gotta run full out. I should have tried that a few times before that, but I didn't. I ran my hardest, and I got around the last curve, and I could see the finish line. And I stiffened up. That really made, to lose to a freshman, that was embarrassing. But that's what our look at. We ought to be looking at the finish line. Jesus Christ is there, waiting for us. I think about some other things that you keep your eyes ahead. You don't look around. You don't check things around you. I think about plowing a field. My dad, we had a farm, and my dad would, he did the plowing. I disked, but he did the plowing. And what he'd do is he'd put a feed bag over a post over there. And he'd measure it off and see where he wanted and put that, something to mark that, maybe a bucket on a post or whatever. And then he'd measure it off on this side of the field, and he'd start in and he put his eyes right on that mark. And he just kept his eyes right there, and he adjusted. If he kind of moved over a little bit, he'd have to get back over there. And that's that. Can you imagine if you you're looking around, and, you're going all over and end up like a menagerie, The other farmers in the community say, "Oh, what an idiot. Oh, man, that looks terrible. What a mess." But for the city people, oh, ain't that cool? Look at that. That's quite a design that he's got there. Oh, boy. But,
Quit talking about me.
I'm sorry?
Quit talking about me.
No, I wasn't talking about you. I have seen that in a field, and
I have done that.
what's that?
I have done that.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to pick on you. I'm sorry. Anyway, that you got to keep your eye on the mark, because if you don't, it's going to be a mess. But then I found more in my own realm. I mow with a zero turn, and man, at first, I couldn't keep it straight, and I'd get crooked. You kind of follow the lines. Well, I have found that if you do that too long, if you get off a little bit and you just follow it, next time it's going to be more, and next time it's more, and pretty soon it's going to look terrible, look like a mess. Well, I have found that if you want to straighten yourself up, your lines up, you look down there and you find something that is about halfway in between where the next line should be, and if the line goes that way, you might have to go to the edge of that line, and you just keep your eyes there, and it's something about it. God has put in your brain an ability to look down there and just keep it straight, because your eyes are looking in the right spot. And when we as Christians are living and serving Christ, we don't look around. Oh, look at that. I'd like to be over there doing that. Oh man, look at that. That's a nice car. Look at that. I'd like to be over there playing ball with them guys. I'd like to be doing this. I'd like to be doing that. No, not as a Christian. You can, if you're not dedicated to the Lord, if you're not serving Him, sure. That's what they do. But Christians, we are different. We got to keep our eyes. It's not only we should, we are commanded to. He says that you press toward that mark. You look at that, you find that mark, and then you press on toward that. That is your goal. And if we do not, our lives are going to be a mess. And have you seen any of them? Or have you ever been in any of them? I have. Well, I'd like to talk to you about one more thing in 2 Timothy chapter 4. 2 Timothy chapter 4. You need to face the facts, find the mark, and then the last one is in verse 7 of chapter 4. I have fought a good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. When we get at the end of our journey, the Lord's going to look at us and say, is He going to say, "Well done, thou faithful servant"? Or is He going to say, "You disappoint me"? Paul said, I have finished my course. The third thing we need to see that we need to do is finish our course. I have fought a good fight and I have finished my course. Now, my race is not against you. It's not against you or you or you. It's not against anybody else. I am running a race against not myself, but against the devil, because he's against me. I am running my race to accomplish what God would have us. I'm kind of like running my race, not necessarily against the time, but every one of us has a different race, a different course. I think about my course. I'm going to tell you about some things about my course. It's kind of like an obstacle course. We go and there's things come in as an obstacle in front of us, and then there are things that we can catch a ride on and go like, man, the Lord just gave us great time, and man, this is great. And then there are times when the devil opposes us, and the Lord takes his hand off and says, well, let's see how you deal with that. And that's the way it is in life. My course is not your course, and your course is not mine. I'm not going to tell you about the first part of my life, but back in 1975, I was about 21 years old when the Lord really brought the hammer down, and he says, you got to straighten up, buddy. I was saved when I was 8, and the Lord took care of me. He blessed me, kept me alive. That was amazing. The Lord, he took care of me. And he in 1975, he says, it's time you straightened up, kid. And, I got down on my knees, I got down on my face, and I asked God, would you forgive me? Now, up until that time, my course was my course. This is what I'm doing, God. I'm taking care of myself. I'm doing what I want to do. That's my course. That wasn't my course that God had planned for me. That's a course that I chose. And believe me, I made a mess. But you know what? God straightened me out. And from then on, in 1976, some girl came up from Carroll, Michigan, and there was Bible school that week. She got saved. Big deal, right? Somebody else got saved. That was good, though, because next week I asked her out, and almost a year later we got married, and that's been 48 years ago plus. Lord was good. But that's where it started, and we stayed. I lived over in Sand Lake, and we stayed there for 10 years, and the Lord, he came along and kind of, how the eagle kind of ruffles the nest up and makes his children not want to be there. Well, I feel that's what God did. He messed around, not messed around, but he just pushed me out. And we came over here in 1985, and the Lord taught me the Bible. And the Lord was good. We came over here. I was ignorant. I didn't know nothing about the Bible. I thought that the gifts of God were, like singing. That'd be a gift of God, wouldn't it? The gift of the Spirit? No. I was stupid. I didn't know hardly any of the judges. And I didn't know that Elijah had already come the second time in John the Baptist. Those are just some of the things I was ignorant of. Well, I took classes here. The preacher, he taught some classes, and we taught them on Monday night, and I was taking the class of Revelation. And he happened to be going through chapter 3. Let's turn back there. Chapter 3 of Revelation. Now, I want you to understand that this is talking about the Laodicean church. You might not know what that is, but that is the last church in the church age. If you read through these, there were 6 churches. Philadelphia was in the 1800s, and people got saved, left a hand over fist, and left and right, and everybody was thinking about the great preachers that were preaching. Well, along come the Roaring Twenties and the New Bibles and all that and change things. Well, he was teaching about this, and we are in that Laodicean age, by the way, if you didn't know. But this is a picture of what this last days are about. In Revelation chapter 3 and verse 16, it says, let's look at verse 15. I know thy works, that thou art neither cold nor hot. I would thou wert cold or hot. So then, because thou art lukewarm, and neither cold nor hot, I will spew thee out of my mouth. You ever take a drink, you think it's nice cold water, and it's just lukewarm? You go, well, that's what God's going to do to us in the last days if we don't take some time and change us. Change ourselves. We can't change ourselves, but we let God change us. We aren't going to be anything. And then it says, because thou sayest, I am rich. Here we are. It's all about me. I am rich, and increased with goods, and have need of nothing, and knowest not that thou art wretched. That means just no good, without consequence, just wretched and miserable, unhappy. I mean, to the extreme. Miserable, poor, and blind, and naked. Well, anyway, he was teaching this, and then he got to verse 18 there. I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire, that thou mayest be rich, and white raiment, that thou mayest be clothed, and that the shame of thy nakedness do not appear, and anoint thine eyes with eye salve, that thou mayest see. You know what? I says, I want that. That's what I want. I don't want this mamby-pamby stuff where you just kind of float along and not do anything. I want God to give me some gold. I wish I would have asked for white raiment and the eye salve so that I could see better and I would be more righteous. I wish I would have asked for that. But that night after class, I came up right here on this. I asked God to give me some gold. I asked him right here. Nobody else was in this room. They were down there having classes, and I was up here, and I asked God right there to give me some gold. And you know what? I never thought about I just kind of out of sight, out of mind. I didn't realize it, but the next 6 years, I didn't have a full-time job. I was just making ends meet. The Lord, well, I wasn't for the whole time. I had a full-time job for the first 2 years. Then the Lord led me out of that situation, and I was part-time with the Postal Service for the next 4 years, and we didn't have a lot. But you know what? I realized that it's not about things. It's not about cash. It's not about what I want. In that time, we had 2 babies. I didn't have them. My wife did. And this was before Obamacare, so it was much cheaper, somewhat cheaper to have a baby. We didn't have insurance. Part-time Postal Service employees don't get insurance. Maybe they do now, I don't know. But I didn't. I didn't have insurance. But when those babies were born or shortly thereafter, everything was paid. God took me through. He took care of me. But man, I didn't know from one week to the next if I was going to have money enough to buy food. But the Lord took care of us. Through all that, I worked wherever I could. I did the odd jobs. I did this. I did that. Whatever to pay for my children's well-being. But you know what? Through it all, God was there. He was with me. He went through it with me. And what an encouragement. What an encouragement. Well, then I got full time, and the Lord took care of those problems. But then He started using me. In the meantime, I got down at the nursing home, and I was teaching Sunday school there since 91, I think it was. And the Lord used me on the mail route. I saw people saved on the mail route. I have funerals for people I barely knew. You know, God says, I wonder if that's the gold that God has stashed for me. In James, it says that people shouldn't heap together riches for the last days. But you know what? When you do what God wants you to do and serve Him and give Him your life and say, take it and use it, you know what He'll do? He'll stash it away for you up there. And we think we got to have it down here. I'm 71. I don't expect to live much more than another 100 years. No, just kidding. I don't expect to live, maybe 10 years, 81. My dad died at 76. My mom died at 96. So maybe I'll make it to 86, halfway in between. I don't know. But you know what? That would be a long time if you look at, just this life. But when you compare it to heaven, billions and billions of years, would I want to change what the Lord took me through? It's not, what I have gone through is not me. That's not me. That's what God did. That's what God used in my life to take me through to get me a little gold. If I would have been much more obedient, how much more would I have? I don't know how much I have. Probably not much. But I'm thankful for what I got. And in these end times, look at Him. Keep Him in focus. And finish your course. It may be tough. It may be hard. You may find yourself in a turmoil. But who cares? It's going to all be over soon, and we'll be in heaven, and we'll be praising God. We'll be enjoying the pleasures of heaven forever and ever. And the little bit that we go through here is just a little bit of suffering here. And that song that says, it will be worth it all when we see Jesus, that's going to be very real to us when we get there. Let's bow our heads and close our eyes. Father, thank you today for your goodness. I thank you for these things, Lord. I pray that you'd help us, each one, to be faithful to you. Help us to be faithful to you in these last times. Lord, the times are tough. Lord, help us not to look at the government and the politics and all the stuff going on in this life. Help us to look at you and what you have for us to do, and help us to be willing to follow you. Help us keep our eyes on you and throw this other stuff right in the trash. Lord, it doesn't matter. Lord, what matters for all of eternity is how we bring